What's going on YouTube? Zero Elite here, and I'm back with a new video. Episode 1 of the U.S.S. Revengeance in Starship Evo. I just want to thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, and if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button helping me in supporting the channel. I cannot thank you enough for that. And today we've got about a 40-minute video. We're going to be starting our build off. This is going to be my first tutorial. I'm really excited to get into this. The build that we're going to be working on today is actually a build of my own design. I've never done anything like this on either Starship Evo or in Minecraft, so I'm actually pretty anxious to get into this. Want to talk a little bit about some of the references and what inspired me to build this ship. This is going to be a Section 31 ship, and it kind of inspired me by the Sovereign class, the Enterprise E, uh, the Curiosity class, which was the ship that Riker had in Star Trek Picard, and then also the Vengeance class. So I grabbed a couple of screenshots here. You can see this is one of the Section 31 ships from Star Trek Discovery that look kind of cool. I really like the engines on them because they reminded me of like the Enterprise A engines. I thought that they looked pretty neat. And you can see this is Curiosity class. This is the ship that Riker had in the Picard finale. One of my favorite features on this ship is the fact that how the impulse engines are kind of like tucked into the um, V-shaped saucer. Looks really neat. And one of the other features I like that we're going to incorporate into the build from the Vengeance is kind of the cutout in the neck, or excuse me, the cutout in the saucer, and then down here in the lower hull, kind of like how the weapons are configured. We're going to make a housing for them, kind of similar to it, but different in its own regard. So we're going to jump right into this. And you can see I've already done a little bit of work. When I was recording this initially, the first screen capture, for whatever reason, became corrupted. So I lost a little bit of work, but that's okay because um, what we're going to be doing here in this episode, we're going to be adding another layer because this layer here is actually going to be too thick. Um, one thing that you're going to notice right off rip is that my saucer actually isn't a saucer, it's in more of a V shape. One of the reasons for that is because I haven't quite figured out how to do a perfectly shaped saucer on Starship Evo. From my understanding with it, it's not something that you can do very easily in the game, and even when you can pull it off, it kind of, from what I've heard, it breaks the game, and the developers not overly fond of it. But it's something I really want them to add in the game, and I hope that they do it in the future. Nonetheless, I'm slowly but surely going to try to work my way into maybe doing another ship with an actual saucer on it, like the NX-01, but on a larger scale. But not really. I don't want to do something a little bit too pixelated. I want something to come out really nice and smooth, kind of like how this ship was. So I'm going to stop rambling on. We're going to jump right into this. Of course, you want to make sure when you're starting any build in Starship Evo, you want to make sure that you have your starter block up. So this way that your ship, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay floating. You can build this, up in fly mode. And you can see I've got my starter block down. Now we're just going to go in and start adding layers. Um, we're going to get quite a bit done today. We're going to do the entire second row of the saucer, and then we're going to do the wireframe of the neck, and we're going to wireframe out our lower hull. Uh, I love how this game is set up, being able to place these boxes down like this. I've heard other games that are similar to it, and they may be out there. And if I'm not naming those games out, I apologize. There's not a ton of games that I play on Steam. There's certain things that I look for, and some of the builder games that I play, and Starship Evo just seem right up my alley. And I've actually really been enjoying this game as I've been playing it. Even with this build, and I can honestly say this for every single build that I've done on Starship Evo, that I've started out somewhere and I wasn't really um, crazy about like where the build started off at, but I'd go, I just keep pushing on and building, and I've surprised myself every single time that I've built something on here because of how well it's come out. And I think that, has a little bit to do with the building mechanics. They did a fantastic job with this game, and I cannot praise it enough. If you have Steam, I highly recommend checking this game out because it really is, it's worth every penny. And something else that they've actually added into the game that I'm excited about, because right now they have like on your ships, like you can go in like light cruise mode, and you can kind of like whiz around the solar system within the immediate area. But this map is actually pretty massive, and they have a new update coming out where you're actually going to be able to warp to different parts of the galaxy. And it looks like they're going to start prepping to add in additional planets and stuff like that. So I'm really, really excited about some of the stuff they're going to be adding into this game. Um, I really think that it needs it, because as far as like the building goes, like they really had that down packed, but there's some more stuff that I would really like to be able to do with my ships now that I have them on here. And regardless, I think that this is a very excited time if you're a fan of Starship Evo, because it seems like they have a lot of really cool stuff coming out. But anyway, getting back in a little bit what I got going on here, you can see that I'm just filling in the remainder of our secondary hull with our basic blocks. We've got the slant that I'm using and the squares. And from what you can, I don't know if you can make it out, but you can see in the dead center of there's actually going to be a hole. Um, it's not going to be obviously this is not going to be a traditional saucer by any means, and it's kind of like best way I can describe it, the saucer section is more or less like a mix between the Curiosity class and the Vengeance class, where it's kind of like the shape of the Curiosity, but it's got the cut in it that the Vengeance has. Because I always thought the Vengeance was a cool ship, but I think that they didn't go Star Trek enough for me in the design of it. And there was always a couple of things that I wanted to change. And like if you look at some of my older videos on YouTube, actually, the Vengeance is one of the first ships that I built. And the only thing that I really changed on that build was the engines, because I thought the engines should have looked a little bit more maybe like the Enterprise A's or something like that, kind of like to match that transition into like a newer technology or something like that. But that was always one of the things like I wanted to redesign on it. So when I was thinking about doing something, my next builds on Starship Evo, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make something up and see how it goes. And if you scoped out the thumbnail for this video, that is actually the finished ship. And if you'd like, you can even go on Steam right now. And if you just search me on Steam on Zero Elite on Starship Evo, you can actually download this ship right now. And if you look in the description below, I've also included a link for you. You can check this completed build out right now, which is really neat. I'm excited that I can start this tutorial off with this ship has already been done and completed. And there might be some points here and there where we might maybe even jump over and look into the completed ship a little bit here and there. I don't know. I'm not even sure how many episodes this is going to be. It's not going to be nearly as long as the Discovery Enterprise tutorial was. This may not even go out to 10 episodes. It could not, may not even go out to like I think 10 or less would probably be fair, because I mean I have quite a bit of captures that I did for it, but I don't think I'm going to show every single bit of the building for this ship. I think really the hard parts are the things I'm going to focus on, and some really neat things that I was able to do with it. And then after that, I'm just going to call it a day, and then we'll do a showcase on it, and then move on to the next build. But if you are enjoying this tutorial and you want to see me do more stuff in the future, be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what you would like to see me build. And you never know, it could be something that I might end up doing on my channel. So getting back in a little bit what we got going on here, you can see that we've pretty much got the second layer completed on our V-shaped saucer section. And now we're going to start to work on wireframing out the neck and our lower hull. And you're going to hear me use this reference from time to time when I say a wireframe, because this is essentially what we're doing, is that we're building a skeleton of our ship frame. And there's a couple of reasons why we're doing this. You're not just going to want to build your ship out at whole at once. You're going to want to do it subtly, piece by piece. And one of the main reasons for this is that it's going to help. It's going to help to keep your ship in proportion. And so you can see here, I've just got an elongated square that I've made underneath, and I'm doing this to get a distance idea, but kind of what I'm thinking of um, is that, well, I end up actually changing my mind during the course of this build, and it's not really like a change that I make to it. But I will say this: at this point in the build, I was kind of like envisioning of this being more of like a ship, like on the Sovereign class end, or like the Curiosity. Like, in other words, they both don't necessarily have a neck. It's just the saucer meets the lower hull, and they're just kind of merged together. That was kind of what I was thinking when I first started this. And by the end of this video, you'll probably be like, "Oh yeah, I can see that," just because of how the outline looks. But as I started going and building this out more and more, long story short, this thing ended up with a neck, and I actually really dig how it came out. Like, it has like this weird like stealth fighter vibe to it, but like it also feels like Star Trek 2. Like, I don't know, like I really dig how this build came out. I'm really excited to show this off because if this is something that you end up liking, and you like these unique builds, this is something I'll do more. Now, of course, I'm also going to be doing builds, from different ships that were from shows and movies from Star Trek and other science fiction related or nerd related stuff. But I would like to maybe get into doing original builds too, and this really just presented a unique opportunity. And I want to kind of like experiment with it and see where it was going to take me. This isn't a huge ship either. It's kind of moderately scaled down. And this was kind of like a tester to see building a ship on this scale in Starship Evo, how well it would come out. And I learned a lot doing this, but there are some downsides to it. There's not really that much that we're going to be doing in the saucer. It's really just going to be this area back here. But going forward, the next build that I do, I really want to utilize the saucer in a better way this time around, instead of it just being a glorified piece to hold the gun that's going to be mounted in the front of the ship. But nonetheless, there's still a lot that I was able to get done with the interior on this ship. It has a fully fleshed out engineering section, has its own computer core, uh, also has crew quarters, captain's quarters, and then, of course, a fully fleshed out ship bridge. I think the only thing I didn't get a chance to add into it that I would have liked to have added was maybe a medical bay. I might end up taking out one of the crew quarters in order to do that, but I still haven't quite decided yet. But at this point, I'm pretty much at the point where I'm just about done with the ship. I've already done the detailing on it as far as the paint and everything, and I may not make any more changes to it, but I really like where this ship went, and like this lower hull is one of my favorite things on it, because like the lower half is almost going to be a replica of how the neck is shaping out. It's going to but be going in the opposite direction, so it's going to be very, very pointed. And if you can just now envision like those Section 31s, the Section 31 ship that we looked at in the beginning of this episode, imagine those engines with like the struts, more of like a TOS Enterprise, where like they're just straight V-neck, or excuse me, V-shape pylons. It's going to look really cool. So we've got our top half done just about. So now we're going to start to wireframe out the rest of our lower half here. You can see I'm just doing this subtly. As you can kind of see at this point, I was kind of, way I have this designed, I was looking again at just having a lower hull. Wasn't very uh, keen on having a neck, but this shape actually stays the same throughout the course of this build. I don't make any changes to that. Like I said, the only really thing that I changed is that, I just added a neck on it, and I don't know. It's something that I wish that they would have done with some of those ships after next gen, that, like within that time frame in Nemesis. Would have been cool, like maybe to see one of those ships with a neck on it, just to see what it would look like. And I think this is maybe about as close as you can get to it. But, again, there's still some liberties that I took with this thing, especially with like the front end of the lower hull. It's very different, and like it was inspired by like the Vengeance, but it's also like complete. It's shaped completely different. It's more or less has the lines like if you look at like the jet intake on like an F-15 or something like that. That's kind of like what I was looking at when I built that section on it, and it comes out pretty cool. I'm very happy with it. Anyway, we're moving along here. We're subtly adding a row out at a time, gingerly of our basic slanted hull blocks, and you want to make sure that I don't know if you can see this, but want to make sure that your cuts here are matching up. And this is what I mean by the cuts, where these cuts are going off at. You can see that they're matching up here, or they should. This way, when you start actually fleshing out your ship, everything's actually going to match up, and you'll be able to close in your ship without too many issues. You might have to make one or two minor adjustments, but we'll get there. I've even got a section on this ship that I reserved for the pending warp core. Whenever they decide to add it in the game, I will be going back to this build and updating it to include the warp core, so that'll be pretty cool. And I'll probably end up doing a video on that on Starship Evo whenever that comes out, and showcasing the new warp capabilities and what you can do. And if that's some stuff that you guys would like to see me do, and all maybe news related to Starship Evo, drop a comment below and let me know how you feel about that. If you didn't know about Warp and the new Galaxy map being added in the game, well, now you know. And I'll even include the link below so you can check that information out for yourselves. But still, regardless, very, very exciting. When I saw the size of the Galaxy map, I was actually blown away because I honestly thought that when I loaded in this game, this immediate area right outside the halo, like a couple of planets and like the sun, I thought that was the map. I didn't realize that it's literally a galaxy. The map is so unbelievably big. Now, I've heard that there's multiple planets currently already in the game, but I actually haven't attempted to go to any of them except the one that's right outside of the halo here, where you can see the rings right now. But anytime I've gotten close enough to the planet, my ship has been destroyed. So I don't think, from what I can see, it's a gas giant. So I wouldn't imagine you can go there anyway. But I really hope that they do add being able to visit planets. They need to add like alien species to trade with or do battle with and stuff like that, and even like wild and alien species that you can tame on different planets. That's something I think that they definitely need to add in the game. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, mechs. That's another thing I want to see added. Being able to build your own mech machine, mech robot, and submersibles. I hope they, do a little bit more of that, because I just there's quite a bit that they could learn from like games like Starship Evo, or excuse me, that games like Starship Evo could learn from like No Man's Sky, for example. Because like No Man's Sky, as fun as that game is at its core, I don't think like they try to make it an exploring game, but to me, even and it is, but in a lot of ways, even No Man's Sky, it's a builder. At heart, it's a building game. And I think sometimes it forgets what it is. And I just wish that, like, with a game like that, you'd expect being able to build your own ships. And it's like, why wouldn't you have that feature on there when you have that much in depth building with your land bases? Why not put that same love and attention into your ships? Doesn't make any sense. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I think that they could do, and I'm not trying to say that I would want them to copy No Man's Sky in any way, because I don't want to see them do that. I think what they've done so far with this game, I think that they've set themselves apart from games like Minecraft and Space Engineers and No Man's Sky, to kind of like where they can forge their own path. But at the same time, I'm just trying to say that I think there's some things that they can maybe learn that the community wanted from those other games that would work within this universe. Um, 'Cause, like, that's just something that I think about too, even when I play Minecraft. Cause like, it sucks, when I'm on Minecraft and I put, you know, 100 or like, hours upon hours into my ship builds, and at the end of the day, I'm not able to fly them around, I'm not able to do stuff with them. But then on the flip of the coin on here, I can fly them around, do stuff with them, but there's not that much that you can do. Now there are other games like, for example, Space Engineers, there's a ton of more stuff that you can do on there, but again, I don't wanna, like, pour 200 hours into that game to make one little mistake and have all my work lost, or to put that much time into it just to learn the basic core mechanics of the game. I don't know. I had the worst time with Space Engineers. I know that there's some people that they'll even tell me in the comments section, I don't know what I'm talking about. The game's awesome. And I mean, hey, if you were into that in-depth stuff, I mean, I think that's awesome, but I don't know. I just I like stuff that's a little bit sometimes easier to get the hang of, that's a little bit more user friendly, that doesn't take forever to get the hang of. Like there was another game, wasn't necessarily like a builder game, but it was a space game, um, Elite Dangerous. That game looked like it was going to be so much fun. And I'm not kidding you. I spent 2 hours programming my keyboard to try to figure out all the controls for it. By the time I got my ship moving, like I was so excited just to go to warp, but like after that, like I don't know, like I was just like emotionally exhausted, like the amount of time that I put into the game just figuring out the basics of it. Like I wasn't willing to put countless upon countless hours just learning the core functions of the game to have fun. Because I kind of feel like when you're playing a game at the end of the day, you should be able to pick it up and learn it relatively easily within a few minutes and then start having fun. It shouldn't take hours upon hours to learn how to play a game and have fun. Otherwise, it kind of defeats the purpose of the game, in my opinion. But to each his own, not saying, what things that I'm looking for is necessarily right or wrong, but just kind of what I'm looking at. Anyway, I want to hop back in a little bit what I got going on here. Now you can see that I'm getting rid of the lower half of the wire fin that I just added, and the reason that I'm doing this is because one of the things I was just talking about a few moments ago, that you want to make sure that your top and lower half, the cuts match. And that was not the case here on the lower hull. So on the lower half of this wireframe. So now I have to go back and I'm going to have to replace my blocks to double check and make sure that my blocks are, or excuse me, that all my cuts here are matching up. Now, when I got rid of that block, now I'm in sync again. Everything's matching up perfectly. So now when we go back in, I actually didn't even need that. Anyway, now when we go back in and in the next couple of episodes and fill in this lower hull, it's not going to be that much of a pain in the butt because we're basically just doing the prep work for later on, you know. And that's just something that I've found from playing Minecraft anyway, that 9 times out of 10, you want to make sure that the cuts on your ship are matching up and meeting a pattern, because it's going to give you less issues when you're trying to close in your ship and make it look presentable, I guess. All right, so far so good. I mean, we've already shot through the first 20 minutes. Got about 19 minutes left in this episode. And like I was saying, there's not going to be a ton of episodes for this build. I don't want to have it linger on too much. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a very big build. I don't know if we'll be showing everything. There's some cool stuff that we'll be going over. But this ship has actually already been completed, so I'm not really going to have too much on stuff if you want to see me add to it. But what the heck, if there's anything that you dislike during the course of this tutorial, let me know in the comments section. You never know, might be something I might be able to incorporate into it. If I don't let that discourage you. Just sometimes ideas I get made not necessarily be something that I might use on this build. It could be something I may use on a different build. You never know. But still, regardless, I do always appreciate the feedback from the building community and the people that take the time to watch my videos. Just want to thank you again for tuning into this content, and I hope that you're enjoying today's bit of content because this was definitely a fun build to do. I actually built this over the course of the last 4 days or so. I started it on, I want to say, Thursday of last week, and I worked on it all weekend pretty much, and finished it up Sunday afternoon. Got the last of detailing in, and it's Sunday night now. So I mean, just kind of like a more or less like a 4 day weekend, pretty much working on this thing. But still, not a ton of hours were put into it, um, mostly because of the size of it. But as you can, when we zoom out a little bit more, I mean, you'll see that this is, again, it's not a very big ship. It's pretty small, but for Starship Evo, so far, it is one of the biggest builds I have made. It's not as big as Optimus Prime, but as far as a ship goes, it's the biggest one that I've made. It's probably at least twice the size of the NX-01 and probably about 3 times the size of the Bird of Prey down there. You can see I've got something off in the background over to our right. That was actually a mock that I had started working on, prepping out for this build, and I ended up instead of converting that over, I just took what I learned from that and I started a fresh build. But still, regardless, some of the stuff I got from that kind of helped me out. Pretty much, more or less, what I took from it was kind of transitioning the V-shaped saucer into the lower hull here. You can see I'm going between the different basic hull blocks because, I mean, it's not a super complicated pattern here. You're just looking for the blocks that will match up with your pattern. Now I'm building these off the sides because I'm going to be building off of each side of these blocks I'm literally just placing down right now. And I won't even be doing it all the way through. I'm only going to be doing that through a couple of rows of cuts on the sides. But I wanted there still like to be just somewhat of a shape, at least a core shape to the center. So this way I kind of know where the center is at. But this is, again, something that we will I can't even talk. Something that we're really only going to be using towards the back of the lower hull. But as we get up towards the front, we won't be utilizing it anymore, and then we'll go back and delete it. There we go. That's what I need. We have to go right up to the cut, and now we're going to do the same thing for the underside. And this is a pretty good building rule that you can use while you're building, and it's something that I definitely use as well. That if you do something on one side, repeat that process again on the other if it is the same process. Now on Starship Evo, we can cheat because we have that splitter that um, the symmetry tool that whenever we place one thing on one side, if it's split down the middle here, it'll place on the other side for us. But in this case, we still have to do it on the top and bottom rows, just on the side that we're currently working on. So that rule still applies, and I definitely recommend doing it if you're newer to building, or even if you're a seasoned builder, because it's just one of those things where it's going to help your build stay just a little bit more consistent and a little bit more in proportion, and save you from having to do extra work down the road. I have to put a block down the middle so I have something to build off of. You always go back and delete that. Now we're going to go over back to this angled block. We're going to be using this quite a bit for, I mean, not even just the lower hull, but we're going to be using this specific block for quite a bit of the lower hull, the neck, and even the V-shape saucer. And kind of like what I'm going for again, I really want to build something that this thing has a lot of smooth lines. Because again, that's kind of referencing the Vengeance, but building something that looks a little bit nicer than the Vengeance. I want to make it a little bit more elegant at that, a little bit maybe closer to like a stealth fighter, I think would be a little bit more appropriate here. Because you have to think again with these Section 31 ships, they're not they're not something that everybody knows about. Even on these ships, they don't even have registration numbers on them, and you won't know even that it's a Federation ship, even though it's quite obvious that it is a Federation ship, but they just don't have the registration numbers on it like it's gonna make a difference. But still, nonetheless, it's pretty cool. I had actually the lower hull, the shape of it towards as we got towards the front, I'd actually originally intended it to look like a diamond, and I might actually show the sketch concept art. I'll take a picture of it on my phone, and maybe I'll show it in the next episode that we do next week for this. I'll show you all the concept art that I made real quick before I started this build, because that's something that you can definitely do too if you're not sure of how the build's going to work out in your head. Work out a sketch real quick. You're not a great if you're not a great freehand artist and you can't really do stuff like that, try to do a Photoshop. Or even if it's not a great picture, at least it gives you an outline in your head a little bit better of what you're going to do, and you can see it. I don't know if that helps for you, but that definitely helps for me. One of the uh, tricks that I use as an artist. I'm a very visual person, so 9 times out of 10, whether I'm doing something freehand or in this case where I'm building a ship on the computer, I'm still looking at pictures for a reference because having that detail helps to make the build come out that much better. And we're rocking. You can see, and this is again why we had to take that time to match up the cuts on their upper and lower. So now when we're closing in our hull here, we're really not having any problems at all. It's really at this point just a matching game. And I'm going to go in and clear out a little bit of the center, but um, the lower hull, it's not going to be super big. Oh, that was the other thing that I did not include on this build. Even though I had on the NX-01 on this ship, I do not have a shuttle bay. And actually, I decided that that was okay. I figured that this would just be a ship of war, um, like a covert stealth bomber ship of war type deal, maybe. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I think that the function of this ship could definitely be debatable because uh, when we get into the weaponry of this thing. I mean, it's got some heavy guns on it. It's got a lot of firepower, and I think that's one of the reasons why I classified it as a um, heavy cruiser, just because of, or excuse me, a heavy. I think I had it as a heavy cruiser or a heavy battleship. I have to look what I listed. I think I had it as a heavy cruiser, but that's simply because of the amount of firepower this thing has. Quite a lot. Anyway, we're looking pretty good now. You can see that our ship is slowly starting to come together. I've gotten quite a lot done in the short amount of time that we've had to work with, and that's just a testament to some of the building mechanics in this game. Pretty much just off of the symmetry tool alone, um, is building the other half of the ship for me. So I'm technically only having to do this one side, which saves so much time on here, as you can see. Doing this on Minecraft, one, I would not have been able to get this level of detail in the Minecraft, and it would have taken me twice the time, hands down. I don't think we're going to finish up the lower hull, but we're going to get pretty close. I want to try to cover as much of the exterior build as I can. But if there's something that I skip over and that you wanted to see, let me know in the comments section. If I get enough people asking for it, you never know, I might just do a separate tutorial for that. I've done that before on my other builds. Like when I was working on the Disco Enterprise, I had there was an issue I had during the recording for that when I was doing the corridors, and I actually only showed one section of the circular corridors. And the reason I did that, obviously, because when I did the outer corridor, the file corrupted. I couldn't upload it, and then I just decided, if I just talk about it and explain it this way, technically, if you do one corridor, it doesn't matter the size of it. You can just make it a little bit bigger. But still, with that, I had a couple people that they needed a little bit extra help, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I was more than happy to do it. So I ended up making a separate tutorial just off of doing Federation corridors alone. So if there's something that you do need help with on here, if it's something that I can help with, I will try to help you if I can. I will tell you ahead of time, one of the things I am not a master with is the yokes and the different timers and mechanisms on here, and the spinning brackets. I've messed with them, but I've actually had a little bit of a hard time getting them to work. If I had to, because I'm not going to be one of those people that's just, like a fanboy and just praises every single thing on this game. I will tell you one of the things I'm not overly fond of. I think that they're the way that they have the yoke and the uh, timers and everything. Like, it's interesting, but I think sometimes it's just way too complicated. And like, there was this one ship that I saw somebody download on, or excuse me, somebody upload on the workshop the other day, and it was a really cool ship. Um, I don't want to say what ship it was, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying anything negative about it, but it's really no fault of theirs. But long story short, they had like this really cool gunner seat on it, and like the gunner seat like whizzes up and turns around and flips over. I was able to find the computer like where they had that at, and like they had automatic doors. Oh no, that's what it was. It was automatic doors that opened up just by walking up to them. And I saw that the amount of yokes that they had and timers and switches and all these knobs just to get it to do that was absolutely ridiculous. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed on here. I think that they need to go through the yokes and all the mechanisms, how they have it, and simplify it a little bit more than how they have it, because it shouldn't be like a 50-part process just to have an automatic gunner, rotating chair come up. It should be a little bit more user friendly, and I feel like that's like the one learning curve that they don't show you with this game at all. Um, as great as the starter area is, and I will praise the starter area, they did a fantastic job with it, but they need like there need a wing on its own on the yokes and doing the different things on there, because um, outside of doing a couple of basic things, I mean, I really don't know how to do them yet. I've got opening and closing doors and like setting them the switches. I can do that no problem. I can set the weaponry no problem. I can set the ship up to move it around and have it go to light speed, and I haven't had any issue with that at all. I've even been able to set up. They have cameras that you can put on your ship. I wish that they would make it to where you can hook the camera up to a screen and actually have the image show up on the screen. But maybe that'll come. But still, like, again, if I had to critique the game, I think the yokes and how they have the switches and everything, it needs some love. Because, like, for example, there's one guy on here that actually has perfect I've seen he's done some ships and they have some perfect saucers on there. And he actually messaged. I asked him how he did it, and he told me how to do it. And I messed with it, and I couldn't get the darn thing to work. And maybe that's just my own shortcomings. Maybe I just didn't understand it right. But again, it's just if it was something that I just wish they would simplify it a little bit more. Just add circles into the game, so this way you can do perfect circles. And I think it would make a lot of people happy. And I think it would make a lot of people happy if they simplified a couple other things on here. Because this is still an early access game, and I can appreciate the amount of work and love that they've put into it, because they really have. I mean, for me, and especially for me to play this game, I mean, I think that does say something, because I'm pretty picky when it comes to games. I don't just play any game anymore, especially as I've gotten older. I've gotten very, very picky when it comes to what games I play, because I'm just, I've gotten to the age where I've played everything, every type of game that you can play for the past 20 years. I want to do something new. I want to experience something new and different. And even though this is a building game, a lot of the stuff they have here is different enough that it really impressed me. So I'm excited to see what they do with this game in the future. We got a couple more rows that we're going to do here, but that's going to wrap us up. We got about 2 minutes left in this episode, but we're definitely rocking here. You see, we got a lot of our lower hull done. Probably within the next episode, more than likely going to wrap that up. Maybe could go into another episode after that. I'm not sure. I have to look ahead to see how long my recording sessions are on that. But I might make some edits here or there to do that in just one more video, at least for the lower half, because we still got some things to do on this ship. Even though it's not a huge build, there was a ton of detail that I put into this ship. I was actually very I mean, just in general, I'm very proud of this build, because there were so many things I was able to do with the ship that I did not think I was going to be able to accomplish. And one of the things that was definitely with the interior, I did not think I was going to be able to get that much done with the interior that I had done. I basically, like, as I was building this thing, I pretty much figured I was going to be able to do like 1 or 2 rooms and call it a day, but I ended up with a couple of decks. I ended up with, like, I think like this thing has like 3 or 4 decks, which isn't bad. It's not a ton. And it's actually, that's relatively small for a Starfleet ship. But again, for the scale of ships that I've made on here so far, this is definitely the biggest one that I've made. But again, I'm taking my time with it. I'm not trying to bite off more than I can chew, and that's something I definitely recommend to anybody, whether you're a seasoned builder or not. Anytime you get into a new game, it's always a good idea to mess around with different stuff and work your way up to it. And you can see that over, if you look at the different ships that I've and different builds that I've done in the past, I've done a lot of different things. I mean, just from the NX-01 to the Enterprise, or the NX-01 Enterprise, to the Cylon Raider, to the Eagle 5, to the DeLorean, to the uh, Cylon Raider, or excuse me, yeah, the Cylon Raider and Ghost Rider, Hellblazer, and Optimus Prime. I've done a lot of different builds on here. But I'm very happy with how they're coming out. And anyway, I hope you're enjoying these as well. And we didn't get this lower hull done today, but we're getting pretty close. We've only got a little bit more that we've got to do on here to finish closing this in. But the main work has been done, really. It's just a matter of, again, just playing the matching game to go all the way out until we get to the front, and then we'll figure out the front and the lower hull. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and if you did, please don't forget to hit that like button, because that the more likes I have on these videos, the more traction I can get, and having new subscribers and new viewers as well. And that's definitely a good thing, because it can also boost chances of me doing more content for Starship Evo on a regular basis. Right now I'm only doing them once a week. But as these videos pick up traction, I get more requests and more subscribers, I will definitely do more videos. And in fact, you can always catch my new Starship Evo videos on Mondays. So don't forget to tune in next week for the next episode, episode 2 of this tutorial series. And you can also catch my new Minecraft builds. On Tuesday is the Enterprise D mock tutorial, episode 2. can always catch those builds on Tuesdays, and my other Minecraft builds are regular builds are Tuesdays through Fridays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. Just want to thank you all again for tuning in to today's video. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I will catch you on the next episode.